Now, without any further ado, let's bring on our speaker for tonight, Dr. Max Stanley Chartrand.
Thank you, Lawrence. I don't know what he said, but it sounded good. Clap. I'm deafer than a doornail. I don't know if you know how deaf that is, but there's nothing deafer than a doornail. We're going to be talking about some really neat things tonight. I'm going to give you some reasons for why you need to get sleep. And I don't mean somebody knocking you out. You do that with a little rubber mallet. You hit your head up and it might knock you over. Or you take a medication that knocks you unconscious. That's not sleep. Sleep goes through a natural cycle. In fact, the brain can't even do its job if you take something to sleep. One of the first words that comes out of most of the mouths of the people I see are, I take that medication so I can sleep. It's good that you're not taking a course from me because you would have flunked that question. I also have a number of MDs that take the courses from us in behavioral medicine. And we have a trick question for them. What medications do you take for sleep? It's a trick question because there are no medications you can take for sleep. You might look like you're asleep next to the person who is sleeping. At night, it looks like it must be working because you're calmed down, but you're not sleeping, are you? We're going to talk about what happens when you really, really sleep. So we're going to go along here and talk about chronic fatigue syndrome, and that is a very and underdiagnosed condition. How many of you have had a diagnosis of this? Okay. I'm not surprised that only a few hands have gone up, and I'll tell you why. Instinctively, you probably know just the sound of that term sounds like something you identify with, doesn't it? One reason it's not diagnosed very often, in fact, it's only like 1 or 2 million people in the whole United States that's being diagnosed with it, according to statistics, is because it's so multifaceted that the features that stick up the most are the ones that get diagnosed. It could be diabetes. See, last month we talked about all the misdiagnosed diabetic people. Just because you wake up in the morning with blood sugar at 130 doesn't mean you're diabetic. It means you've got tooth sepsis and you need to get the bacteria out of your gums, or to get your crown fixed or whatever. And it's only recently we started declaring those people diabetics. So our number of diabetics has skyrocketed in the country because we're taking anything that looks like and quacks like and walks like diabetes as diabetes. Instead, most diabetics are pH or acidosis based. Unhealed subclinical infections. Subclinical infections are infections that are not in the bloodstream. For instance, sepsis, not in the bloodstream. It's not septicemia yet. If it was, at 2 in the morning, there will be lights outside your neighbor's house picking them up if it's septicemia, because they can't live very long with that. But believe it or not, all the point leading up to the septicemia will make your blood sugar spike. It'll make you produce cortisol, if you will, or corticosteroids. It'll make you gain weight and makes your bones soft. Leading up to it, you'll have achy joints. Leading up to it, you'll get rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis, at least 80% of the time, is caused by those subclinical infections. We know this from research. Isn't it funny? We don't know what causes it. We don't know what causes it. Here's what we've got today. The U.S. healthcare system, 2014. Take a moment and think about that. Number 1, leave water running. Number 2, quickly with a handheld ladle, remove excess water. Number 3, no, make that a bucket. But whatever you do, don't shut off the water. That's the system we have today. In other words, don't do a thing until the person has a stroke or an attack, acute of something. When we talk about preventive, but we give a lip service. We talk about it, but we don't talk about the evils of the genetically modified diet that we have, the irradiation, the microwaving, all those things. People are shocked when I talk to bona fide scientists. I'm considered a scientist of international standing myself. And then I talk about microwaving throughout different scientific blogs, and somebody from Australia or some Germany or somewhere, Canada, and they'll say, what? Do you really believe that microwaving is bad? Well, I say we don't have a lot of research to go by because it was all stopped in the United States in 1989. When we started seeing that people were getting diabetes and cardiovascular disease and cancer, they said, enough, we don't want to hear anymore. And it's not been allowed since. I could give you an incident that happened recently where a consortium of us were getting together to have another study on that. And boy, you should have seen the warnings we got from all directions when the word got out. There's certainly no funding for it. That's important, you remember that. If you want to get well, don't microwave your food, don't even warm it up in the microwave. If you want to be healthy and live to be 100 years old, we know how to do that now. And if you want to make your DNA stronger, make your mitochondria repair it, if you want to be able to live healthy, clear to the end of your life, keep your memory and all those things, don't microwave. It doesn't mean that nothing else will happen. It just means you don't need that burden on top of it. So, we leave the water running, we leave the GMOs in place, we leave the high fructose corn syrup and pretend that the body doesn't know the difference when it does know the difference. It knows very much the difference. Or to pretend that with synthetic nutrition, which is the main nutrition in the United States today, is not contributing to anything. It is. It's making the bathtub overflow. As a result, from the 1970s to today, we've had a 13-fold increase per capita in diabetes mellitus type 2. We've had a 17-fold increase of cardiovascular disease. A 6-fold increase of cardiovascular disease since 1997, when the great statins came out. Take out that ester T in with it. Know what I think about the statins. We don't need a synthetic statin. Now, I need to make a qualification here. Because I've said it's bad, please don't stop taking it without talking to the doctor first. But there's reasons why I make that statement. Have any of you had a leg ache from a statin drug? Anybody will wake up with a leg ache? That happens a lot to a lot of people. And they say, what about the heart? What about the muscle that's most important in the body? If the leg muscle's having trouble, what do you think the most important muscle is doing? It doesn't even have sensory nerves to tell you it hurts. Did you know that you don't feel a heart attack at the heart, do you? Where do we feel a heart attack at? Anywhere but the heart. So you wake up with a leg ache, and maybe an arm ache, maybe another muscle in the body. I can guarantee you, you've got a heartache and don't know it. Okay, that's just one thing. Leaving the bath water running, not changing our diet, not stopping microwaving, all these things that contribute. Caffeine is increased by sevenfold in the population since 1970. That's a lot of caffeine. And guess where most of us going is the young people. The younger they are, the more the caffeine. So what do we have? Skyrocketing rates of developmental delay, ADHD, dyslexia, can't concentrate. Their immune systems went out, their adrenals went out. That all fits back into chronic fatigue syndrome. Leaving the bath water running when we should be shutting off the bath water. Shut it off, then we can start dipping and taking care of things. But this other way, what have we got? Up to 80% of all the world's prescription medication is consumed by 4% of the world's population. They just happen to live in the United States. And it's uniquely American to have all these problems. Oh, I forgot to mention cancer. In the 1970s, when I'd ask groups how many people know somebody that's got cancer, how many do you think would raise their hand? What percent? 1 or 2 or 3. And they would say it's because they watched Marcus Welby last week on television. Because they didn't know anybody. That's how we're at 25 times growth of cancer in the population since the 1970s. It's huge. I'm on a committee, an international committee on research on animal studies for cancer. We're curing cancer in animals left and right. It'll be a long shot before they ever get to human trials. They ought to get to human trials, but they're not going there too fast. But the question keeps arising, how do you give animals cancer? Did you know that animals don't by nature have cancer? It's almost unheard of. Especially animals in the wild, very little cancer. If they do, it's because it's something you left out for them to eat. If you want to give animals cancer, have them eat like we do. If you want to see a rat get cancer, feed it Diet Coke. It will get it. In fact, they get it so quick, we don't have to wait very long. The lab will be working on the project, helping the animals get the cancer. And then they'll perform the experiment before they can get halfway done. And finally, they notify us who are designing the study. We say, hey, wait for us. I'm here to tell you, we've got to turn the bathwater on. So when forward means backward, only in the realm of medicine does idiopathic disease exist. Idiopathic means we don't know what caused it. Though we don't know what causes it, becomes no one knows what causes it. That's the sophistry that goes with it, the arrogance that goes with it. That if we don't know, he, she, and him and them, none of them know either, which really is wrong. We're finding answers all over the world. I'm just absolutely amazed at our colleagues in the scientific world, and even in places like Iraq, of all places, under attack right now. One of our chief researchers in animal studies is from the Kurdish area of Iraq, a wonderful scholar. Malaysia, Germany, Switzerland, all these different countries, wonderful work going on, very quietly, even though the world might be upside down and going crazy. They've got some wonderful scientists out there hard at work. And they're saying, we can no longer say we don't know what causes it, and it's very arrogant for anybody to say that we don't know what causes it, but that's what all the medical textbooks tell us. Then after in this test, the prognosis becomes nothing can be done but manage the symptoms. Now that is a prognosis of convenience. We might actually run into professions who think that nothing can be done except manage it. But the convenience factor is there's a lot of money in managing something and not very much in healing from something. For instance, I call it renting your health versus owning your health, where you have to keep going back and getting this medication and then 2 more medications to offset the side effects of that, and a medication to offset the side effects of that. Pretty soon you have so many medications that when something goes wrong, you don't know who to sue. And that's about what's happening today. I don't mean to sound cynical about the medical system. Many very sincere medical professionals are working hard around the clock, killing themselves. If you knew what it took to be, what the doctor has to go through before he gets up there and starts and actually can see people as a standalone professional, it's unbelievable the training they have to go through. It's the same thing with nurse practitioners. You're a nurse practitioner. Very admirable. We need a lot more nurse practitioners today. They're doing a good job. A lot of work, but they're tied to a system called reimbursement codes. Reimbursement codes rule. It's like a panel of doctors in a meeting that I attended a few weeks ago in Phoenix. We asked them, when they gave their proposal, what they do to help their patients. We said, somebody asked in the group, how do you get reimbursed for that? They said, we don't. Then why do you do it? Through humanitarian reasons. And that's what happens when something good, gentle, it doesn't hurt you, it doesn't cost much. There's no reimbursement. I'm not saying we need to reimburse everything. I think we've got a system now that makes it so that we're at the point that we'd rather have 2 knee replacements at $240,000 or whatever it costs to get through the system than to go spend that's somebody else's money. $240,000 is somebody else's money. Then just maybe a couple of $3,000 of our own pocket to take care of the problem ourselves. And those are fair comparisons, by the way, as you'll see as we go along. The U.S., with only 4% of the population, consumes up to 80% of the world's prescription medication. So we wonder why in the world the rest of the world's not taking the same level we are. They're too poor. Our income's gone down. What per household? I think they said in the last figures I saw $11,000 a year or something like that per household in the last 5 years. And there's a lot of countries that are higher than us now in per household income. But they're not taking medication like we are, and they don't have the same rates. As a matter of fact, we spend, the next competitor to us would be the UK spends, in this because half of their system is private, and it's brought their cost way down, by the way, by going private over going through national. National looks cheap because someone else is paying it, but it costs a lot more. That they spend about half what we do, and that's still exorbitant. If you go to Canada, it's 1/3 per capita what we spend. And many of the countries, like New Zealand, are about 1/4 to 1/5 what we spend per capita. Very healthy people compared to us. I go to Japan, it's scary. They have me look at 600 adults when I go over there to lecture. And I find 2 diabetics and 1 cancer patient, the whole group. I come back to the United States, And I look at just maybe a college class, and I find that already happening. You see, in one small class versus 600 from Japan, because they only have 1/12 the diabetic rate we have, and 120 something the cancer rate we have, similar to Italy. So, in reality, there's always an underlying cause that can be found if intelligence search for. Underlying causes can be detected through the assessment of biomarkers. Marcus Welby, MD. You remember that? As you know, that was the most watched, #1 in American television history, #1 watched program while it was on from 1969 to 1976. Nothing beat the viewership of Marcus Welby, MD. He was a caricature of the researcher practitioner that spent time researching each patient's case until a solid solution was found. Who would help them in? I've often wondered why you cannot get reruns on them. Did you know that? There's no DVDs, there's not even the old videos of Marcus Welby. You can't, there's been no reruns. And it was the most watched program in the world. So one of these days I'm going to get that and watch it very closely with a critical eye, and I'm going to find out why. Chronic fatigue syndrome, one of the most under and misdiagnosed conditions in the U.S. Devastating tiredness, exhaustion, at least for 6 months. Now, I put this one first, although it's not usually the feature that defines chronic fatigue syndrome. It's usually secondary to the other issues, but it's the one feature that I can ask almost everybody that has it. How well do you sleep? And of course, the answer will be conditional. They'll say, if I take tramadol, I can sleep. Or I take Xanax, I can sleep. But that's not sleep. Okay, we'll come back to that. It's not sleep. It just makes us look like we're asleep. We're playing possum. We're not doing the things that happen when we sleep. Substantially interferes with work, play, and social life. Forgetfulness, memory loss, difficulty concentrating. Features tender lymph nodes and neck and armpit, sore throat without an explanation. That happens a lot, doesn't it? Chronic muscle and joint pain, inflammation for many. One of the most common features is sleeplessness. I'm sorry, we already repeated that. I wanted to make sure we got that one home. Nearly always associated with neuropathy. Depleted adrenals, usually from high caffeine intake. I'm going to define caffeine for you right now. It's borrowed energy. You say, where am I borrowing it from? You're borrowing it from your adrenals. And your adrenals can only, since they're a stress, adrenaline is a stress hormone, will only make a certain amount before the adrenals won't make any more. What happens when the adrenals stop making your adrenaline? Does anybody know what happens? The adrenals produce something else in its place. It's called corticosteroid. What's the corticosteroid do to the body? Just name a few things. What's it do? It makes you gain weight, okay? Turns your immune system off. In other words, you're under attack, but you don't know it. So you start catching everything. What else is it doing? Softens your bones. Makes you lose your teeth. The jaw shrinks. You get acid reflux. Acidosis. The metabolism slows down. It takes longer to digest your food. Food to nutrition that goes to the floor, and you start starving to death even though you're eating more. That's what happens when you take corticosteroids, whether they be synthetic or the natural kind that your adrenals produce. It's when the adrenals can't do their job. They're going to send a messenger, and it's assuming that your life is at stake and you're about to die, and you're in the third act of a movie, and your name is Rambo, and you haven't eaten in 2 weeks, and haven't seen water in a month, and yet you still got to kill the bad guy. That's what your adrenals assume. You're playing that role whenever you wear your adrenals out. Caffeine borrows from the adrenals. You remember that. Sleep, your circadian cycle. Life is a cycle. A 24-hour cycle to make a new you on a daily basis. We'll talk about that in a minute more. 3-day cycle, the 72-hour cycle to do things like scrape off your fingerprint, take a file. Everybody's lined up. They want to take your fingerprint. You're the guilty guy. They're not getting your fingerprint, are they? They're going to file it off. But it takes the line is so long, it takes 3 days to get up to the front of the line for them to fingerprint you. And doggone it, by the time they fingerprint you, it's all going back. We'll talk about how that happens in a little bit. 72-hour cycle, it goes back in exactly like it was the day you were born. It hasn't changed or altered at all. You need your circadian cycle. You need the 72-hour cycle. You've got another cycle too, fellas, and this is one that your wife might identify with. She doesn't believe you till she's seen it for a while. When you say, I'm sorry, she doesn't believe it. Because for 3 weeks, let's say you go without water. Let's say you drink 1 glass less water a day than you need, and you're in southern Arizona, and every day you perspire more than you thought you did. You give up an awful lot of water. You need 1.5 gallons to pull it back up in a hot Arizona summer, but you only drink 1 gallon and 1 pint, for instance. So you're short a pint. Guess what happens? Your body produces an ADH called antidiuretic hormone. Its job is to make your blood thicker and to keep your blood volume from falling so you don't pass out. So you can still function. And it makes your blood pressure go up. It makes your sodium go up. You get your blood test, the sodium's high, the doctor says don't eat any more salt. It has nothing to do with it. You say, I'm not eating salt in 2 years. What do you mean? It has nothing to do with what you're eating. But we often think it does. And then you get a blood pressure medicine. One of the things I teach CMDs is don't give a person unless it's a critical and acute case. Don't give blood pressure medicine until you have had them hydrated. And that hydration takes place over a 3-week period. And that's where the wife comes in. She finally believes it, just like the pituitary gland is going to believe it, that you mean it when you drink water every day in the proper amount. It takes 3 weeks. Finally, the ADH shuts off. And you go back to normal. If you stay in that condition all the time, you'll go through the stages of kidney failure, starting with stage 1, starts with dehydration, ADH. So anytime you get a blood test, if you have any kidney issues at all, in fact, I would recommend it if you have diabetes, and especially insipidus type, or you're thirsty a lot, or you're going through a heat stroke, get your ADH score. It's a real tough one for many of our health professionals to interpret, so they don't like to mess with it. But ADH is called antidiuretic hormone, ADH. Along beside that, I think everyone should have an A1C score. If you're going to bother with a blood test, why not get something that's useful? A1C, hemoglobin A1C is one to get. I don't care if you're diabetic or not. It still tells you a lot about where you're at. If you've got a subclinical infection, the A1C score is going to be high, whether you're diabetic or not. And it's just one more viewpoint of what causes inflammation. Okay, we'll come back to that. So the first thing about the circadian cycle is that you're fighting infection while you're sleeping in environmental assaults. This is sleep that goes through the stages of sleep. Next, you're scrubbing your brain. This is fairly new research here. Been out about a year. You're scrubbing your brain, making it clean again, so you don't wake up with all the worries of the world on your shoulders. You wake up new and fresh. So if you're not sleeping and you just conk yourself out, whether by rubber mallet or by tramadol or Xanax or whatever you're using, a sleeping pill, you really haven't scrubbed your brain. You're still carrying all the weight of the entire world's problems on your shoulders into the next day. It's pretty hard to live that way. We call some of that anxiety and some of it depression. Another reason is to absorb accumulated fatty acids into the muscles. Now this is where people really start listening to me. When I say you lose weight if you get true sleep. That's what fasting's all about. It takes stored fat, it's stored away somewhere, and after you pass the 4-hour, that's the key, that 4-hour mark, you start absorbing, you start bringing that fatty acids and the fats that are accumulated in your fatty stores into the muscles, which means you wake up the next morning and when you do, you stretch it out. And they go out to the adrenal system. And you're ready to go. You've lost some weight. It's inflated. 4 hours just to turn that part on. It takes about 4 hours to get the carbon dioxide out. I'm not suggesting sleep 4 hours. You've got to go for about an 8-hour period just to get 4 hours of sleep in the depth that you need to sleep. But remember, you lose weight when you sleep truly. And then finally, this one here is reestablish your self-scrub cycle. This is the part that we should really be paying attention to. If there's any one thing that I could do, if I had a magic wand, I said it's just one marker that I can change, and everybody in the United States is sick. it would be their pH going to 7.45 at the cellular level, not at the blood level, not the urine level, not the saliva level, at the cellular level. And everybody says, how do you check it? That's the catch. Biopsy is the only way to do it. Who wants to spend the money for biopsies? What it cost? And you remember what the biopsies cost? $10,000 to find out what your pH is. That's why we developed biomarkers. And several different fields have biomarkers. I don't know how many of those fields have biomarkers for pH at the cellular level, but we do under the videotoscopy biomarkers. And we can tell usually within 1/10 of a step of what your pH is. It's just simply looking through your ear at the ear canal and assessing the keratin. We've looked at thousands and thousands of people and weighed it out and measured and compared that to pH. So we know what your pH is, really, really close. And what's an absolutely stunning thing that happens when your pH rises back to 7.45, you become like the Japanese. No cancer, no diabetes. You live 12 to 15 years longer. Your DNA repairs. The telomeres come back in. So get your sleep. At the heart of most human disease is, you look at the electrical panel of your house. And when I have a patient come in, I'll say, okay, stand up. Let's look at your electrical panel in your spine. And that's what it is, the electrical panel of your central nervous system, which actually innervates everything from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. In fact, so powerful it is that if you come right here in the tailbone, sacrum 1 and 2, and you fell, you were maybe 8 years old and you were learning how to ice skate, and you fell. Anybody ever done that? I did it. I fell and I fell and I fell till I never ice skated again. And I broke my sacrum. When you're younger, it doesn't hurt you too bad because it's called apoptosis, cell death. There's no fluid with it. It's just a little aggravation when you sit for a while. Oh, that hurts when you go to stand up. But when you get about 40 or 45 years old, some things start changing. The cells slow down, the entropy of the cells changes, and you go into what is called necrosis, cell death, and you start producing fluid. And that fluid does something we don't like to admit happens to us around age 40 to 45, when we got a broken tailbone. We lose the flow of our stomach muscles, and we're transverse colon falls down, and now we've got digestive problems we never had before. See, all this stuff cascades. But it goes, I'm bringing this up right here, because if I have everybody take off their shoes and socks right now, and said, point your toes, and I want to see how many crossed toes I've got. And if I have someone that says, well, I used to have crossed toes, but I don't now. Well, what did you do about it? Well, they clip this nerve, and they clip that nerve, and they clip that tendon. And I said, why did they do that? The electrical panel is here. It's right there. That's the neuron for the toes, sacrum 1 and 2. Fix that, and then the toes relax, and then cross. That's what happens today. You remember about the bathtub overflowing? You don't want to lose your balance. You want to keep those toes. Don't let anybody clip anything. There might be an exception in there somewhere, but so far I don't see them. Okay. Chronic shorting of the electrical system is called neuropathy. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. Does anybody have neuropathy? Okay. Neuropathy. Let's go to the medical textbook. It's called idiopathic. Just about all. In fact, we have one whole classification called idiopathic neuropathy, or idiopathic peripheral neuropathy. But all neuropathy is considered idiopathic when they can put your finger on how to develop, and more importantly, how to undo it. Okay, we'll talk about this a little bit. Neuropathy is a pathological chronic condition, takes several forms. Loss of myelin, which is the insulation, by the way, and astroglia, which is that floating myelin in the brain that protects those neurons that are so precious. That's the reason you need to stay away from any of the drugs or alcohol that makes the astroglia go to sleep. If you're silly, it's silly, and you'll lose your neurons simply because when you need those neurons, those don't replace. So your free radicals will attack the neurons and wipe them out. So you want to protect it. Now I'm saying that I don't mean you can't grow new circuits. You can grow the connective tissue for new circuits. But please don't stress yourself out there. Injury of nerve fibers, another. The injury could be just hitting, maybe one real common type us fellows is we put the trailer hitch in the back of our truck and then we walk around the truck in the dark and that break our leg. And that will shock us all the way to the bone, in some cases causing osteomyelitis. I would say most of the men's neuropathy that I found in the legs, stage 1 and 2, usually has a lot of bruises from banging the legs into things. So you can do that by injuring the nerve fiber itself. And then heavy metal and chemical neurotoxicity. How many of you have those Cordy Q light bulbs in your house now? Those new ones.
It's mandatory.
No, don't break them. Don't break them. Don't let them break.
Mercury in them.
It's scary. If you go to the literature on that, you're going to find it's absolutely scary. If you get a package that's broken open, they've got mercury in them, and it will cause terrible, terrible damage. I couldn't breathe for about 3 months when I opened a package of 3 I bought at one of the local drugstores, and there was 3 in there and they're broken. Every one of them. I was standing there looking down at it, and I breathed that mercury gas, and it just burned my lungs so terribly I could not breathe. And I was sitting there looking at that label saying, well, they warned me quite a little bit about this. Then I checked with the EPA and found out we got a 16-page booklet that you're supposed to get and follow. They've laws and regulations on it, but who's following it? But anyway, do be smart on it. But these are the things: chemical neurotoxicity, oxygen and nutrient deprivation also causes it. Loss of limbic control, cognitive imbalance, viral bacterial disease, secondary, but it does occur, and atrophy, which means they're simply not used. And that's a big problem today. We're not using our bodies as we should be. One of the things we see so often are developing neck disease simply because we're looking straight ahead all the time, and we don't realize it's a cerebral spinal fluid that is constantly being under pressure, that floats your brain, that holds everything in place, keeps your back stiff, and so forth. That pressure is very, very important. If you don't look to the right and to the left, like our forebears did, if you don't look around, that's what absorbs it. This is what releases the pressure. This, and this, and this, and this. But that's not how we drive, is it? It's not how we look at the computer or watch television. We just straight ahead all the time. As a result, we have enormous pressure in the cerebral spinal fluid system because of inactivity. And that does cause neuropathy. Some of the worst headaches in the world occur from that simple thing that I just named to you. Neuropathic pain is the body's messenger that alerts the mitochondria that something needs repair. It manifests as tingling, burning, numbness, shooting pains, tremors, seizures, loss of coordination, anxiety. Too often we shoot the messenger and prevent the mitochondria from instituting repair that our nerves need for the neuropathy to be resolved. Keep in mind, here's a scary statistic, is that 84% of all the world's opium is consumed by Americans. A medical grade opium is consumed by Americans. Did you know that we have 16 million people by prescription approximately now addicted to opioid medication like Vicodin and those? 16 million. That's the legal ones. On the other hand, we have between 15 and 16 million that have been identified in statistics as also being addicted to it, but they're not taking it by prescription. Where do you think that all 32 million of those people got their start? By prescription. That's why many of us out in the scientific community are saying we must limit the use of opioids to no more than 2 weeks. Now, if you're taking an opioid, it could be Tylenol 3, it could be Vicodin, there's a whole list of them now. They give them all kinds of names, but the active essential and active ingredient is opium of a medical grade. If you're taking that, you've been taking for a year or 2 or 3, you need to go back and reassess a few things. It's hard. It's very, very hard. We have people come to our pain clinic many times wanting another prescription. They're not interested in getting well, not interested in fixing anything. All they want is just that prescription, and we don't give it. That's not what we do. Our work is without the drugs and without the surgery, without the x-rays that they can be avoided. Number one cause of thyroid cancer, for instance, is x-rays. So be careful how loosely you take those. Remember that a CAT scan is 100 x-rays. So you say, I've only had 99 x-rays, and then and you're priding yourself, you never had that one, and then all of a sudden you got a CAT scan, you got 199 all of a sudden, one fell swoop. It's a cumulative damage. Be careful. key players in the ongoing drama titled Setting Back the Clock. Now I'm going to take you on a little adventure here. As you know, we talk about setting back the clock, and the consensus in the scientific community, not the medical community, scientific, is that we can go telomeres back, which is the shoes, I call them the shoelace ends of the DNA strands, or the book ends, depending on which way you look at it. You know, you get a shoestring, it's got a little plastic thing at the end. That's called a telomere, and it keeps it from unraveling. It does the same thing with the DNA. When you establish telomeres and you make them good and solid, you lengthen your DNA. That lengthening has about, on average, a 10 to 15 year effect after the age of 50. So that if we could take a person that's 70 years old and strengthen their telomeres, statistically, that person can expect to go back to about age 55 to 60 in their DNA strand length. So think about how much better off you'd be. I'm 66, so I would go back, if I went back 15 years, whoa, that put me at about 40, what, 49, somewhere in there, 45, 50, 51,
51.
going out. I got a mathematician in the front row here. Actually, what was making me stumble on that was thinking of the ramifications. I can get in a time machine and go back. But your mitochondria, that is the future of medicine and health. Mitochondria, keep your eye on them. Keep your eye on telomeres. It's such a major topic. They had the first annual conference on telomeres in London last fall. I think they're going to have the second one here. I've got notice on it. But just to think that they actually have, that's that one little unknown, very little insignificant part of the human immune system, actually part of your DNA and genetics, that they have a whole conference just on that. But strengthening telomeres can add as much as 10 to 15 years to one's lifespan. Mitochondria is the doctor in every cell. Mitochondria did not come with this. It has its own DNA. It was added to man at some point after man had already had its DNA and existed or created. It was added to. And that added to is what makes you live or die. 2 minutes out of your body, you die. He maintains your homeostasis. He goes through the DNA translator called ribonucleic acid, or RNA, because he himself has a different DNA. He cannot read your DNA. So the only way he can read your DNA is by going through the translator RNA. So the DNA blueprint is a picture of you in perfection. It's not you as a child. It's not you as an older adult. It's you at your very, very finest. Whenever you want to put everything back to your DNA, that's the perfect you. That's quite a quest, isn't it? Just try to get that paper back that's curved over in an aging form of spinal stenosis and degenerative disc. But if you could take deco laser and take the cartilage cells, raise your pH up, and stimulate the mitochondria, and he looks at the DNA implant, and here's what happened. I'm doing a time-lapse photography. Like a robot. When I get taller and taller, put space back in there. That's what we measure you, because we want to see how much you come up, till you're back straight, and now you're you again. That's how it works. It doesn't matter how old we are. It just takes longer for some than others. Telomeres, the shoelace ends of the DNA, and the ADP, ATP, that's a repair core. I've given the example before. I'm going to give it to you again because I don't want you to forget it. You get up in the middle of the night, someone left the anvil in the middle of the bedroom floor. Doggone it. You bang your foot into it. Oh, that's awful. There's hardly any pain stronger than banging into that anvil. You're so absolutely, utterly speechless. You can't say a word. Or you can't even reach down and touch your toe. It hurts so bad. And then the other person in the room says, through the dark, what happened? And you're about having a heart attack. And then by the time you calm down enough, 60 seconds later, whatever it takes, and you say, I stubbed my toe. Someone left the anvil in the middle of the bedroom. You work with anvils. You know what I'm talking about. Very, very painful. And she says, which toe was it? I can't remember what foot it was. That's how fast he went to work. As soon as you touched It stubbed that toe, mitochondria went to work, he sent the repair crew, he spent a flood, an absolute flood of ATP and ADP, they go through stages. He sent that repair crew with all the T cells, the T helper cells, the B cells, the bone cells, the thymus cells. He sent everything there. He said, send it all. Macrophage cells, the big lumber, huge vacuum cleaners that, well, they call it filter queen. And they came in and they pick up all the dead cells and all the injured cells and all the inflammation and the lymph fluid and everything that was let loose. And by morning, that toe, which was that big, is back to normal size. That's how fast mitochondria does his work. He does it because he had a messenger. So we've been enemy number one. What have we done to neuropathy patients? We've made it so they can never get well. If you can take a pill and not know that you're sick, mitochondria, whose nose is a fire, where'd it go? Where's the fire? What do I do? He overshoots. What do we call overshooting? Quick, what's the word? He overshoots. He's out there, man. He's fighting like crazy. Laying in the dark, he doesn't know where he's going because the messenger didn't tell him where to go. What do we call that? Allergy. Inflammation. It sounds familiar. Migraine headaches. Lymph fluid. Making pressure in our sinuses. See, if we didn't have a problem, we do now. You see, be careful about shooting the messenger. How Dr. Mitochondria makes a perfect you. We've gone through several stages of developing the cold laser. We used to just call it cold laser, but we call it deep now because there's so many places you go to. It says cold laser in the winter, cold laser in the winter. Type 1, type 2, even type 3, very shallow, maybe quarter inch, half inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch in the stronger ones. We use class 3B, class 4, which goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And I was just reading a research paper the other day. They measured it clear down to 4 inches. I was stunned. I didn't know we go that deep. Well, we go deep. And so we shine that light down in the mitochondria. The mitochondria captures it, but he's got conditions. He says, now you want me to do my job? You remember, this guy's a genius. He can fix anything. After all, he's got your DNA blueprint. You don't. He does. He can read it. You depend on him. So he says, if I'm going to do my job for you and I've got to hold this light, I've got to have oxygen. If you don't give me oxygen, what can I do? What's the one distinguishing feature chemically when there's pain? Can anybody tell me? Is it oxygen or carbon dioxide where pain exists? Carbon dioxide. So that means he's going to fix everything with the spot that doesn't have oxygen. And you don't need that as much as you need that spot fixed, right? That's why we've got to change the whole scenario. That's the whole program, is to change the scenario. That's why we use medical massage. That's the reason we use aroma touch. That's the reason we use the Soki lamp in the far infrared and all that, is to get the oxygen to the site of lesion. Believe me, if I had a magic wand and I could make it disappear in a second for you, I would be publishing on it, and everybody would be doing it, hopefully. At least some would be doing it. But it's not that possible. Instead, we've got to focus on what Dr. Mitochondria requires. He's the boss. If you're going to be fixed, he's the one that's going to do the job. So he's going to say, when he gets there, he's going to say, okay, I see heterotopic ossification, which means that soft tissues that turn hard, and I can't raise my arm past this because I have a frozen shoulder now. Or I've got a plantar fasciitis on my foot, which is a bone spur. Or I've got osteophytes on my neck from whiplash that occurred when I was 5 years old, 15 years old, 35 years old, car wreck, falling off the swing set, jumping off the roof, climbing down from our second story room to the ground and falling the last 8 feet. Those things accumulate. And it says, I've got bone issues, I've got cartilage issues, I've got soft tissue issues like neurology or your nerves and your skin, your blood vessels. See, that's what all these nutrients are for. And rebuilds it and reading the DNA blueprint. It doesn't know any other way to put it back together except the way the manual says to do it. And when it gets through, it puts back a perfect you. It's absolutely stunning to see the changes that happen in people when they go through that. The skin gets thicker, it gets smoother. Cataracts come off the eyes as fast as kidney stones break up in the kidneys, as fast as atherosclerotic plaques come off the blood vessels. They're all the same thing on osteophyte in the neck or bone spurs. It's all the same thing in different parts of the body. It's stunning to see it happen. All we wanted to do was to fix that one thing, and guess what happened? Everything else fixed. It was in that same category. It's absolutely stunning when we see that. Common complaints are idiopathic digestive disorders. Let's see, what have you got? You want a name? I want IBS? No, it's not that. I want acid reflux? No, it's not that. What is it? I just don't feel good. Food and nutrition synthesis, starving to death, but not getting enough nutrition in the food we're getting. You see, idiopathic, can't tell. Doesn't have a name. Sleeplessness, autonomic loss, monoclonal jerking. Does anybody know what that is? Maybe you've had a partner, somebody, sleep, get kicked by him. They wake up, it doesn't happen. They go to sleep. Then it goes back to monoclonal jerking. It's a muscle spasm that comes in a rhythm, usually of about 1 per second, or 5 seconds, 10 seconds, sometimes unpredictable. Numbness, pain, burning, tingling, difficulty walking, unsteady gait, loss of balance, all these things tie into the neuropathy. Muscle weakness, muscle cramps, and paralysis. Now, when we get into some of these, they are defining features that take it out of the realm of chronic fatigue syndrome. So I'm not saying that everything we look at under these different symptomatic syndromes are indeed chronic fatigue syndrome. That's one of the reasons that makes it hard to define and to diagnose. Hearing loss, tinnitus. Does anybody have a ringing of the ears? Would you mind, Lawrence, getting me the tuning fork set that's right there in my room? And I'm going to ask you a question on that. Hearing loss is a type of neuropathy that occurs from a number of reasons. You know about neuropathy of the eyes from having diabetes, right? You've heard of that. We have the same thing, hearing loss from diabetes as well. We have central loss, which means that hearing might be okay, but it doesn't transmit through the central auditory system. So we can hear something, but even though we're hearing it, we pass the hearing exam, we can't comprehend it. It happens at different levels. Thank you very much. Tell me if anybody has a ringing of the ears at this level, and I'm going to tell you what this is in a minute. Pretty close this pitch. It's impending heart problems. This is the heart sinus note tone. We are creatures of 4,000 hertz. In other words, 4,000 hertz cannot be heard better by any living thing than what humans hear if they're born with and have normal hearing. Normal hearing for humans is almost absolute SDL at 0 level, almost. It's about 1 to 1.5 decibels detectable, and there's no other sound we hear as well as that one. So when someone says, I just have a little loss, a little bit of a hearing loss, I say, what is? They're always a high-pitched sound, 4,000 hertz. I don't need it. I say, yes, you do. It's the most important you need. So if you've got that, pay attention to it. I put down for this several spots for openings so I can see patients and do a consultation with you. Anybody that I've not seen in the group, and I see a number that I've not seen, it's open to you. I don't charge you for it. I think you're going to be very surprised at some of the things we'll come up with. But if you have that or anything we've talked about so far, feel free to set an appointment. You might be surprised what we come up with and be able to show and find the real underlying cause. That's what we're looking for. Blindness is part of that. Blurred vision. You'd be surprised how much a lot of that can be overcome. I'm not saying bad blindness. I'm talking about some of your typical conditions. There's also issues there that can be resolved. Loss of sense of taste, smell, satiation, thirst. Loss of dexterity, tactile sensation. Loss or elevation of blood pressure, tachycardia. Tachycardia happens a lot in southern Arizona in August. Many people have a double heartbeat, and usually a parsteral type, what we call POTS syndrome, because they have lost their electrolytes so much, and they just replace it with water. Water is not electrolytes. Just to give you a little quick thing, I had someone call me the other day, or they text me, and it was a fellow coming down to help somebody move, and he texts me and he says, I'm so sick. I woke up this morning utterly sick, and asked him what he did the day before. And he's overweight and working hot. He says, I just drenched myself, just absolutely drenched myself. And there wasn't any water to drink the whole day. And I said, it sounded like you're having heat stroke. So I suggested he go and get a Gatorade. I don't normally recommend Gatorade. It doesn't have the finest ingredients in the world, but it saved him. The second one made him feel so good. He said, I think I can drive home now. After he's going to start his 900-mile trip back home. But see, we go through that every day. I said, welcome to Arizona. Because that's what we go through. And we go through a slow version. We've learned to manage it a little bit better, but we still tend to drink too much water and not enough of electrolytes replacement. You see? And you can't solve it just with plain simple water. That spikes your blood pressure, tachycardia. I'm telling you that because some issues that we have like this are fairly temporary, but they're very, very serious when they occur. Long-term opioid medication is nearly always the answer after running all those tests and everything and saying we don't know what it is, we don't know what causes it, but here's something to kill the pain. So we become opium junkies within about 2 weeks. It ruins our liver and autonomic system. Oxycodone, Percocet, morphine. I'm just absolutely stunned at how many people are walking around taking morphine now. It is scary. Morphine, that was only used when you had an operation, right? And it's about the only time it should be used when we have people walking around with it. Did you know that when you're taking morphine, you might as well be in the hospice and you might as well be increasing the drip one step at a time and looking at your watch when your insurance expires at 11:59 because that's when your heart's going to stop. Morphine will kill you. And yet we have people taking high doses I would never ever dreaming out driving the streets. Just absolutely scary. Steroids destroys immunology, softens your bones, and damages your DNA. Not permanently, by the way. That can be corrected in time. Cortisone, prednisone, methylprednisone, are the most common. Anticonvulsive, antidepressants, antipsychotic, like your gabapentin, your Paxil, and so forth. Lyrica, Zyprexa. I just cannot imagine. I'm absolutely dumbfounded, ladies and gentlemen. I was almost also a trained psychologist and have taught as a professor of psychopharmacology, and I was absolutely stunned at how we're not going to causes, whether there be emotional stress causes or post-traumatic stress, whatever you want to call it. We're going straight for a pill. Lyrica's pretty common. In fact, they've gone into off-label on that for restless leg syndrome and those things. Chambers. Why not get to the bottom of the problem? Correct the problem instead of making yourself so dependent on something like Paxil. You can't even come off of Paxil. It takes months and months to come off of it. Your body I've had people say it's like going to hell and back coming off of Paxil. It's not worth it getting started on. It's not innocent little thing. We have between 80 to 90,000 emergency room hospital visits in the United States every year because of medicines like Paxil. We have over 280,000 people die per year just from taking medication as prescribed. Be careful. Be careful. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, the ones that seem so innocent, like the ibuprofen, Aleve, that'll make you deaf, meloxicam, and so forth. Celebrex, very dangerous. They will cause heart disease. They will close off. In fact, their mode of action is to take the pressure off of an area that has inflammation. But in the process of doing that, it cannot repair itself. So you've not only temporarily taken the blood off of it, but you've also kept it from ever returning back to normal.
And that so-called doctor of hers, my mother's, put her on Celebrex. I think she had 2 doses that blew a giant hole in her stomach.
2 doses of what now?
Celebrex. That's all it took.
Yeah.
The neurologist told me, and she denied it. Oh no, I didn't have enough of that.
Yeah.
They tell you on TV the side effects. They'll say
Yeah.
causes what is it, unexpected bleeding or in elderly.
Right. Actually, if you watch the commercials carefully, you'll find the FDA requires them to put some notifications on what we call
Side effects.
informed consent or warnings and so forth. So they'll say, have to tell you how wonderful it is, and it's the most beautiful commercials. They're the largest, from what I understand, they're the largest advertisers in the United States, so you can imagine why everybody just clamoring after them. You just, one after another after another. And they'll, after they get to that part, they'll say, if you have liver disease, tell your doctor. Well, anybody that's probably got those issues has liver disease and may not know it. We have so much alkaline liver today, we're walking liver problems. So, but it says may cause this, may cause that, and so forth. They go down, starting with some of the minor things, and finally, in some cases, death. And I'm wondering who in the world would take that medication after you've seen that long list of things. To me, that would be a signal for everybody that's watching that. Watch out. But too many people are falling for it. Surgery. We estimate that 50 to 80% of surgeries leave the patient more debilitated than before the surgery, depending on the research you're looking at. 50 to 80%. David, you see it. You've got a patient that comes in, they've had 3 back surgeries, and they've got rods and pins and screws. It's the most unpleasant looking x-rays you've ever seen in your life when you've seen some of these surgeries. And it's like they're all twisted up like this. They can't move. They can't move. They can barely move their neck. And then you've got to somehow make them feel bad. Oh, it's tough. And he gets blamed for everything. No. We're there to defend him. But anyway, people get debilitated. Be careful, think long and hard about it. You might be one of the lucky ones that doesn't have the terrible damage, but we say, why not grow the cartilage back? Why not grow the bone back? Why not get it repaired? You put the deep cool laser down that sacrum where you got the little cartilage that are causing the necrotic fluid, and the 4th or 5th time you put it on there, it forms a plasma, and that plasma will seal it up. It turns into a type of glue, and it seals it up. And for the first time since I was 8 years old, learning how to ice skate, I don't have a cracked sacrum. And then I've got to spend the next whatever time to retrain those nerves that have been pinched and broken and have all kinds of abnormal cells around them, and put them back together. So you go into the Soki lab. See, most of our staff has been trained in Soki lab, and they go in there and you put your feet here and you put your foot there, and you put the negative charge, which you're negatively charged. It pulsates up, hits a blockage of abnormal cells. It speeds up real fast. Have you seen that? Speeds up, and then it lowers its amplitude, and then it breaks through, and it goes back to a normal amplitude. That works its way up to the finally it gets to the lower back, up all the way up till it hits the neck. It's a wonderful concept, and it's a lot better way to go than going through something debilitating so bad that you're on morphine for the rest of your life. Cellular pH, I'm just going to spend a second on this. You'll see on this scale that we've associated different types of disease with different pH levels. This is based on the Krebs cycle. Does anybody here in the room know what a Krebs cycle is?
But as I believe it's the cycle that produces the energy for the cells and whatnot.
Yes. That first graph I had on sleep, where pH falls as day goes, and then you go to sleep, restful, see, and you wake up the next morning, your pH, which should be back to 7.45, but if you're taking medications, it won't be. If you're dehydrated, it won't be. If you've been drinking caffeine all day to keep yourself awake, it won't be. You see, if you've got an unhealed increase in subclinical infections, there's a whole long list of things. Accumulated lead, we've got a lot of lead in our body. Whoa. So what's happened, the pH of the American population has dropped steadily. We're going by the incidence of disease to determine the pH levels as we finally learn whether pH levels affect disease and cause disease. This is called acidosis. When you drop below 7.3, actually from 7.2 downward is technically acidosis. 7.2 is pretty minor acidosis, but it's still acidosis. So we're slightly alkaline beings. Now, if you go to your garden and you want to find out what makes your garden green and bloom and make the fruit large and everything, they're the opposite. They're acid-based, and they also are positive ion-based, which is the other half of your charge. We're negative ion. And so what makes them grow makes us get cancer. As a matter of fact, I've heard some scientists say, they're firmly confirmed, and I hear this from a lot of scientists, that cancer is just a vegetable garden growing in your body. And it feeds on what it takes the vegetables to grow: carbon dioxide, positive ions, and acid. The very things that you feed your garden. So, if you've got even a hint or even a possibility of cancer, what do you want to do? You want your oxygen at 100% in the cells. You want your Krebs cycle at 7.45. Not starting down here at 7.0. Who wants to be there? But that's where most of us are. You want your carbon dioxide out of your body. How do you get that out? You sit down in the side of your bed. You take half a glass of ionized alkaline water. You drink not too much. I don't want you getting them all night long. Just drink about a half a glass. Enough that you tickle a neurotransmitter in the throat, which sends a chill down your spine when you do this. Take a deep breath. Hold it, let it out. Take a deep breath. Does you feel the chill go down your spine yet? Usually in the second one it does. Maybe I was showing that to somebody earlier today, and the first one I almost went like that. Could have been working around the clock. The third time will do the trick for sure. And what happens is you send a neurotransmitter down to the kidneys to switch on so it can send the carbon dioxide out. From that point it releases ions, it pulls up all the carbon dioxide, comes back out. That's the person at 1 o'clock in the morning is laying beside you that goes, try that. See if that doesn't send a chill down your spine. Do it, everybody. Make the sound. You have to make the sound. Did you feel the chill? Did you feel it? Oh man, how am I going to keep you guys awake? That's how you go to sleep. And from that point forward, your kidneys are expelling carbon dioxide. Okay? It's odorless, so don't worry about halitosis. Bacteria is what makes it smell. Okay. So 1 o'clock in the morning. Finally, you're going to get some sleep. That's why we have to lay there and relax. The answer is not to get up and start watching television again. The answer is not to be sitting up because you don't feel like laying down. The answer is to lie there until you go to sleep, until you go. From that point forward, I guarantee you're going to have to really work hard to wake back up. That's what I want to see you do. The pH is where it's at. You get down to 6.8, you don't want to be down there. And this is what happens. We call it the entropy of cells. Entropy is the direction the cells are headed. Once you start to decline and pH dropping, you usually continue, however fast or slow, but you eventually arrive at 6.8, and that's as low as you can go. When you hit 6.8 and you're there for a period of time, I would say 2-3 weeks, you've got about 2 weeks left to live after that. And it'll shoot up. It'll automatically, your system, the biochemical, the electrical system will shoot up, putting you at about 8.5, which is too high in pH, and you will produce ammonia. And you've got 2 weeks to call everybody together so you can talk to them at your deathbed. That's about how it works, about 2 weeks. So, you don't want to go that route. Get back up here. I want to live. I've got a lot to do. Well, by golly, I made a guy a promise tomorrow morning. I've got to wake up. Get good sleep. Get your pH up. These are the main causes of underlying causes of your chronic disease. Genetic weaknesses do fit in, but it tends to be more of a scapegoat than anything else. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, you are the survivors of the best of the best. You are survivors of the best of the best. You came from people who survived everything. Pestilence, the plague, each other, weather, starvation, dehydration. Genetics are a gift, not a curse. The genetic damage we talk about so often, most of that occurs in a mother's womb. We can do something about that. I don't care if the baby's premature. That DNA and that mitochondria can be repaired. I give courses on child development. I'm under the firm conviction that every child inside is a genius. And every child can grow to that full potential, given a chance. It doesn't matter if they started out in life and it took them 30 years of autism before they finally outgrew enough of the autism to unlock enough doors in their brain and to grow the corpus callosum, which is connective tissue, to become that genius. But every child has potential to be a genius. And we see it again and again when the child finally has what they need to do. I don't have time to talk about that tonight, but I wanted to tell you that genetic weaknesses and impairment are not the scapegoat. that I think that many in the establishment would like us to believe. In fact, in research, we tend to think of genetic influence as being about an 8 to 14% influence on the direction your body's going to go, which means that you might not live to be 112, but you'll probably live to be 102. You'll be happy to live either one, right? Okay. You make the world book, Guinness records if you get up to 112. People will be paying attention to it. Harmful substances. No artificial sweetener is safe. They're all poison. It's a slow death. It will kill you. Artificial sweeteners by any name, aspartame is probably the worst of the group. And it's the 95% of the chewing gum. So please look at the labels. Harmful substances. Heavy metal accumulations. We've got lead. We show you how to chelate that lead out, get it out. It makes your hair white. It's amazing. It's really quite unique when we see our patients come in and they start out with white hair, and pretty soon their hair is turning all kinds of beautiful, deep, rich colors. You see that, don't you? All the time. The therapists see that. And they, just 1 week's time, it gets darker and it gets darker and it's darker and it turns back to red or blue. With blue hair. But white hair is most of the time caused by lead. Stored in the bones, doesn't show up in the blood. That's one of the reasons you don't see it in too many blood tests. The only time it shows up in the blood is when you have real bad acidosis, and then it pairs up with the calcium that comes out of the bones. And then all of a sudden it shows itself and recycles and causes dementia and a few other problems when it gets that thick. That's not a good one. To get that out of our system. Healed lifetime injuries, unhealed, I should say, injuries and traumas. Lack of sleep and exercise. These two things. Anybody have a headache right now? Any headaches in the room? You have a headache?
Right here.
No. Okay. It could be from the sinus.
Yeah, I have allergy.
Okay. Cervical 7 one, thoracic 1 are like this. We'll show you how to get it back. It's like this. This never lasts too far. But if you go like this, I don't want you to do it if you think it hurts you, but if you go like this and go stretch, you're resorbing cerebrospinal fluid that fills the brain up. Look straight ahead. Then go the other way. You can all do it. Let's do the feeling. Did you relieve some pressure when you did that?
Yeah.
It makes such a big change that it will make you dizzy
Yeah,
at
it
first.
relieved it.
Where's that?
It relieved it. My headache.
Did it make you stop?
Yeah.
So like the cerebrospinal fluid.
But it's
parts
helpful.
of the time it comes off the cervical spine, and you go like this. Can you do it? Let's see you do it. Go like you. You're in the nursing program?
Yes.
Okay, do this. Okay. Now go like this. Now look straight ahead. Did it make you a little bit lightheaded at first?
No.
Oh, good. Okay. Did you feel the relief at all? She's perfect. That's old folks. We get a lot of relief when we do that. Did anybody else get relief when they did that? Try that. It's a good headache remedy. Okay. Remember, go to sleep, have a glass of water, feel the chill. That's when you're going to start expelling your carbon dioxide. Do this for headaches, pressure. We need to do that more. Cellular pH, oxygen, at least 98%. I like to see all of you at 99 to 100. When I see someone in their 90s or 80s even with 99 oxygen, I tell you what, that's cause for celebration because it's almost unheard of. And if we can get you to 99%, I'll tell you what, your body from that point forward is going to be sharper. Your thinking is going to be sharper, and you're going to heal faster. And a lot of good things are going to happen in the body. Your pH is going to be pulled up. When we talk about the Krebs cycle, really we're talking about a cycle that involves oxygen and carbon dioxide. It involves electrical potential, so it's got electrical side, and it also involves carbon dioxide. The acid alkaline. There's several things that occur. In fact, some of the other electrolytes also participate in that particular cycle. And so when you get your oxygen to 99% and you're an older adult, your pH will start working its way back up. It's what you have to do to get it up there that counts. But those are the things we shoot for. This is what it looks like. Most of the patients that we see, we took and looked at a sampling of files. We've got about 20, probably about 2,200 files or so in here. And we took a sample, and this is what we found. The average person coming in comes in with 7.0. And their cellular oxygen is 92 to 97%. This is the healthiest of the group. This was the one that's most typical. The hemoglobin A1C was 6.2 to 7.0. This is average. We had many people up way up the chart, 8, 9 or higher. And the blood sugar fasting, blood sugar waking up in the morning started at 100 to 130, which today is considered normal because so many people have it. They say you're normal now, and it's not really true. You should be over here, 70 to 99. But I'm talking about without medication on that. But please don't try to do this without medication unless you're on a program that's actually raising your pH up. C-reactive protein is generally 1.0 to 16.0. That's the highest we've run into so far. C-reactive protein should be, by after the program drops to, actually they say the goal is 1.0. We'd like to see a lower than that. We'd like to see the 0 if we could. No information anyway. So we come back up here, and this is what, at the end of the program, after the program, 7.35 to 7.45. It's wonderful when a person gets to that. It's almost like someone gave you another 10, 15 years of life to do the things you want to do in life. Enjoy life. Cellular oxygen, 98 to 100%. Yes, we have some that get the big one, 0, 0. You remember taking out some of their blood, how often did you get to 1, 0, 0? Pretty rare, isn't it?
Yeah, usually 98 to 99 is what I run.
99 was
even
more
when I
common.
was on O2 and with pneumonia, I rarely got to 100.
Yeah, that'd be a person that was very
Yeah.
healthy, actually at 99.
Usually somebody who's really
Yeah.
doing a lot of workouts, cardio
Yeah.
workouts.
We call that a leading biomarker, which means it may not make you instantly better, but by getting the oxygen where it should be, all the other markers start improving. So the hemoglobin is generally necessary right here for our patients. We tend, I'd say, about half of the people we see are diabetic or pre-diabetic, about half. And then blood sugar comes down, C-reactive protein score comes down, and so forth. This is another score. It's a newer one that nobody in this area, as I understand, knows how to calculate. It's a real tricky one. But we like anyone who thinks they might have cancer to get that score because it tells us how fast things are moving. Remember this, that cancer usually can be stopped pretty easily by your immune system simply by making your body healthy. But once you start under treatments that coaxes the cancer cells that almost kill them but doesn't quite, it makes it smart, and the smart cancer cells are the ones that we hear about that are fatal. That's when your immune system can be overwhelmed because it can mimic normal cells. Remember that. And if you ever want to talk privately with me about that so I can describe that process a little more, feel free. We try to give you information. We give you a lot of monographs on different topics. We gave you a sampling of a few right here. These things help the public understand what's happening in health and what they need to do to improve their health. The biomarker assessment itself, the heart of it is videotoscopy, but that's not the only part of it. Where your bone and joint integrity are looked at, your cartilage integrity. There's 3 types of cartilage, or actually 3 types, but several combinations of those 3 types that we look at. Cardiovascular status, micro and macro systems. In other words, the blood pressure indication doesn't tell us very much about you. It tells us very little, actually. We're more interested in why the blood pressure is high. Once we look at that, we understand about the micro and macrovascular system, and from the standpoint of what can be done. Epithelial, neurological health, hydration, and cellular pH. It's really quite stunning. How many of you had a biomarker assessment of the type I'm talking about? Raise your hand if you had one. Okay. Did you feel like it gave you useful information that you've never gotten before? That really, when we train physicians at that, in that, and we publish on each one of those biomarkers, by the way. We find outside the United States where they're not ruled by reimbursement codes that they're using them more and more and more. In the United States, some are using them, but not so much, simply because it's not common practice. Common practice tends to dictate what happens in medicine. If everybody's not doing it, nobody does it. is pretty much the rule. You see things like this. I told you about the problem in the sacrum causes this. The problem's not in the foot. The problem's in the tailbone. Got compression fractures. Neuropathy, diabetic ulcer neuropathy. In this case right here, there's amputation close to 300,000 per year today. Back in the 1970s, it was less than 300 per year. In fact, during the 1960s, it wasn't tracked at all. There were so few amputations as a result of diabetic neuropathy. This is before and after 20 treatments. A circle of a fellow that was hit by a school bus and stuck his neck out like this. He lost 1 7/8 inches height, and his heart was racing at 180 beats per minute. It took 2.5 weeks. That's all the time he gave the clinic to work. And when he got finished, he was 1 7/8 inches taller. His heart was slowed down to about 65 beats per minute. He slept for the first time in about a year and 3 months, and got back to work. He's got his life back. Coming back down again to finish the job, but this saved his life. I'll tell you, but this picture right here is a fellow that they spent over $1 million trying to get him well in the local public hospital. I think this package on this was about $1,200 a circle. Absolutely stunning. Big difference. This right here is really quite typical. This is the left knee, so you're seeing the inside of the knee right here. Typically, your knees, when you start having knee problems, occur on the inside, although when your knees go out of alignment, it don't be as much on the outside, bone to bone. And we have some cases where they actually gone bone to bone for so long that it started splintering. This hadn't started splintering, but it was very debilitating. The fellow couldn't walk. 12 weeks later, this is what it looked like. He grew cartilage. The spot you can't see your cartilage on your X-ray like this, but you can tell by the space how much cartilage came in. It was really quite stunning. I'm going to get here to the. We have negative ion generation in every room, except this one. We'll do something about that. All the treatment rooms have it. It makes you calm down. It's the opposite of being near an electrical transformer. That's the last place you want to be, is next to an electrical transformer. If you've got one, of course, it depends on how strong it is, but if you've got one less than 50 feet from your bed, you better be careful. I would do something to shield it, because you're liable to get a brain tumor. It's the #1 cause of brain tumors in children. And it's a real sad thing when it occurs, but those are man-made cancers. Just like thyroid cancer, at least 80 to 90% of those are caused by repeated X-ray. X-ray causes the damage to the thyroid. It's pretty hard to get to have cancer in the thyroid on its own. It takes something man did to it. Aroma Touch, we use a medical grade doTERRA essential oils, raises the spine, oxygen at the spine to 100% to prepare for deep cool laser, and will light up entirely the mitochondria from head to toe, will be lit up for 3 to 5 days afterwards. It's really quite stunning when you go through that the very first time, because you can almost feel the wand as it moves. You can tell, because they get on one part of the neck, and it makes your tongue tickle, and they get another part, and your cheek itches over here. You get another, and it makes your toes start twitching. If you those that are getting treatments right now, when you have one of these Aroma Touch deep cool laser, lie there and think about it. Try to follow it. I think you'll be real surprised the associations there. Medical massage. I can't say enough about its importance. It rids the body of your carbon dioxide, reestablishes immunology, muscle tone, neurology. Phenomenal. We've got some literal, absolutely raving geniuses in our group, and one of them was that fellow that came up here and talked about, introduced the whole thing. People walk out of his room and say, "Have you ever had a massage?" They can barely talk. My lips are numb. "Have you ever had a massage from Lawrence?" They'll come out and say, "Where'd you find joy?" I'll just say, "Oh, Donna, oh, I just want her." Oh, they'll say, "David's got 4 hands." I can't believe the comments I get. And we only have part of our staff here tonight, by the way. Just almost half of our staff are here tonight. The rest are different places. But just wonderful, wonderful staff. I call them raving geniuses because they've gotten so good at their technique and they're also different. They do a big job. The Sophie Wellness Lab. I can't say enough about it, but I'll tell you this. When people ask me about losing weight, you can lose weight in the Sophie 960 calories, usually around that amount, for 1 hour in Sophie Lab if you've not eaten in the last 4 hours. But if you decide to eat a little candy bar on the way, it will burn that candy bar and leave the fatty stores where they are. See, that's the key. So you want to come fasting when you go through a Sophie Lab if you want to lose weight, because it'll burn those calories. You'll lose weight when you get a medical massage, a 90-minute medical massage. With deep cold laser, we estimated about a 600 calorie loss. It's also a form of exercise. And then, of course, we've got your BMI machine out here. And those, you see those people? Have you seen that? I saw Jane on that. And she was going really, really fast. What speed were you on?
I got up to 50.
Oh, man. Who goes 50? That's fast. Now what happens is that stomach, I have them when they walk past me, I say, put your stomach in. And they go, and they feel the transverse colon's coming up, 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 up. And when it comes up, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It's not resting down on the kidneys or down to the bladder anymore, pressing everything, keeping you from getting your stomach muscles. Comes up, 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 and the stomach comes in, and pretty soon you're as skinny as a teenager. It's really quite amazing. We ask our patients to use that. It's a wonderful thing for them. It improves their digestion. But each one of these items here have something very, very important for you. Deep cold laser. And this I close with an invitation to set an appointment for a free biomarker assessment for you and your family. We set aside some time. We had a real tough time for this one because we had so many appointments set. All the way through, we had to go through and change some people around so we could open some times up for you. So please take advantage of it. We moved the world over for you to get my schedule opened up so we can see you. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.